Good morning, Phil.
Is there any nice weather in this city?
Mate, welcome to Melbourne.
I think I've never seen the sun shining. Hey, mate.
I'm good, mate. This may
well.
be my last outside insiders. We'll see what happens. Mate,
It is, because it's moving to Canberra in July. You're going to have to move up there now.
oh, July. I thought it was June.
No, it's July.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Mate, have you ever visited Hiroshima?
I have. Yeah, I went there with Kevin Rudd in 2008.
Mate, one of the things, I saw a documentary or a report about 10 years ago that said how Hiroshima had recovered after the devastation of the war,
sure.
and it compared it with Detroit, which has absolutely fallen apart in
different reasons.
Hiroshima didn't have 75 years of Democrat rule, so I think that may be...
Well, one was economic malaise, another one was an atom bomb, I think.
Indeed, no doubt about that. Good luck on the program this morning,
thanks,
mate.
mate. Yeah, cheers, mate. Are you going to come to Canberra and
I will not hang around out there. Can you pass that on to Shalala?
I will, yes, sure.
I have been asking ABC reporters about the fact that ABC covered in detail the pedophile conviction and jailing of George Pell,
right,
but never covered at all the conviction and jailing of their own guy. Good on you, mate. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Good luck. Bye.
Good luck with all, mate.
See you, mate. Thanks very much for talking to me over the years.
Oh, no problem, mate. Well, it's work.
See you, mate.
Yeah, I think it's the wide, Bill.
Okay, mate.
It's the wide one they moved.
Well, I may see you again. See ya. Very grateful to Phil Coorey for chatting with me. He's one of the guys who's regularly been prepared to have a chat. One thing that always intrigues me about what used to be the ABC Insiders Twitter feed was the comments about Phil Coorey being a stooge for the Liberal Party, or a similar vein of stuff. The comments on what used to be the ABC Insiders Twitter feed were, and they reckon David Speers is a stooge for the Murdoch press. The ideological viewpoint, obviously, of most ABC followers is left, and they simply won't tolerate anyone who presents a different view of news and current affairs. Their intolerance is breathtaking. Bill Thompson for Outside Insider. Folks, I think The Voice is a mechanism to give some people in Australia more rights than others based on race, David.
Thank you.
I think The Voice is a move to give some people in Australia special rights based on their race, and I think that's totally unacceptable. Thanks, mate.
Have a good one.
Good on you, mate. Bye. Bill Thompson for Outside Insiders. Simon Birmingham was unwilling to give a firm answer to the question. As I've said before, I was born and grew up on the east coast of America and came to Australia in 1963 when my mother, who was an Aussie war bride, decided to come back to Australia after her marriage to my father failed. During the 50s and early 60s, I lived in America at a time of segregation, lawful segregation, where there were legal proscriptions on who could go where based on their race. I was delighted to come to Australia in 1963 and find that that was not the case here, nor has it ever been the case here. And now, in 2023, there is a proposal to give some people currently living in Australia legal rights that aren't available to everybody, but it's available to some people based on their race. And I find it totally unacceptable, and I regard it as blatant racism. There was also discussion today about China. And I'm going to make a distinction between the Chinese people at large and the ChiCom regime under Chairman Xi Jinping. I believe, well, the G7 was meeting in Hiroshima this week. The site of the atomic blast, one of the atomic blasts that probably precipitated the end of World War II. It had been going very badly for Japan, but they were proposing to carry on fighting, and the suggestion was that there might have been 1 million Allied casualties if it was necessary to invade the Japanese homelands. Truman took the decision to drop the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He warned them and said if they didn't surrender, there would be a rain of ruin from the air, the like of which had never been seen. And the Japanese didn't surrender, and so the bombings went ahead to end the Second World War. In my personal opinion, World War III began in early 2020 when the Xi Jinping regime, in my opinion, deliberately spread the COVID pandemic globally after closing down internal travel within China from Wuhan. They allowed tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people to fly internationally from that region, spreading the COVID pandemic, in my opinion, deliberately. In my opinion, to influence the outcome of the 2020 US presidential election, because Xi Jinping didn't want Trump back. This was an ideal opportunity to cause disruption and damage to the Western economic environment, and in particular the US economic environment, which had been going gangbusters under Trump, and that was the last thing that Xi Jinping wanted. Anybody in Australia today who thinks that global warming is the most pressing risk to humanity is absolutely kidding themselves, and is mouthing the propaganda that has been spouted by the media and politicians for a decade or more. Remember, it used to be called global warming. They now call it climate change, because there's plenty of times when it's freezing cold. There's plenty of times when it's boiling hot. But with climate change, they get to call whatever's going on a reflection of what they're spruiking. I have no doubt that CO2 emissions may well have somewhat of a warming effect on the global climate. Mind you, it seems to me, I recall reading that there was what's called the Little Ice Age 10,000 years ago, when there was apparently a kilometre of ice over much of particularly the northern hemisphere, and it started to abate 10,000 years ago, long before the Industrial Revolution. There are, in my opinion, natural forces at play in relation to the climate and weather. No doubt man is having an effect, but in my opinion, and the opinion of many scientists, it's not the only influence. Phil Thompson for Outside Insiders.